Hello and welcome to Park Central. We're back after a bit of a hiatus. There hasn't been a whole lot of theme park news here on the West Coast, and we don't really have access to Florida other than just talking about it. But now we've got some big news with Disneyland finally reopening a little bit to be a shopping and dining destination. And it's an interesting time. We're still not quite there. We're not recovered from the shutdown and everything yet, but it's on its way. And today we have with us, as always, Mike Sandoval from MUSE TV.
Hey, how's everybody doing? It has been some time. I think August was our last show.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we have a lot to talk about this time.
Yeah, after a while, I just felt like every episode we were getting together and being sad that coronavirus took everything away. And that's not a fun show.
No.
So now we finally have something to talk about. There's been a huge deal with all kinds of legal stuff coming through and the state fighting with Disney, and Bob Iger left the task force and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So for anybody who is unfamiliar, basically what happened is Disney has been asking over and over and over, we need the reopening guidelines. Please give us the guidelines. And California said, we're coming. Finally, they said, all right, we're going to do it later this week. And then it was supposed to be released on Friday. On Thursday, Disney got a chance to preview the requirements. And they said, oh, no, don't release that. That's not going to let us open until next month. And this is earlier in October. And so they were like, all right, fine. You don't want it released? We're not going to release it. And Disney was like, well, but you have to release something, just not that. We don't want to wait until next month to open. And the state said, basically, if you don't want our guidelines, we're not going to give you our guidelines. And I think their official statement was something like, we're in no rush to deliver the guidelines because they were scoffed at. And so there was a protest at Disneyland in mid-October. They've been getting letters left and right from all these advocacy groups for theme parks and small businesses that we need to reopen right now. And so finally they said, all right, we're going to release the guidelines. The guidelines say that Disney and Universal and Knott's can reopen as theme parks once we hit the yellow tier, which is 2 down from where we are now. We were in the purple tier previously. Now we're in the red tier. We have to go through orange to get to yellow before they can reopen at 25% capacity. And this just pissed everybody off even more because now they're saying it's probably going to be 2021 before they're able to open as a theme park. And I don't think it'll be a full year, but depending on how the winter goes and the flu season and if it gets any worse, it may very well be a full year that they're closed as we're kind of crawling our way out of flu season. When this subsides again, we're able to start dropping. So that's a huge deal for them. Disney has threatened legal action against the state. They've filed a lawsuit. I think they've either filed it or they're about to file a lawsuit against the state. The mayor of Anaheim came out and said, basically, Anaheim's going to be fine. Disney's going to be fine. We're going to get by, but it's shutting down all these other small businesses in Anaheim and the resort district specifically, who rely on Disneyland to be open as a major source of income for these hotels and restaurants that, there's basically nothing else up there other than that and the garden walk. So they're hurting really, really bad. And that by keeping everything shut, it's only doing a disservice to them, more than Disney as a gigantic corporation that's going to survive. So it's just gotten really, really tense. And in the wake of all this, Disney finally said, we're going to open as a shopping and dining district on Buena Vista Street in California Adventure, which is taking a cue from what Knott's Berry Farm has been doing since July, and finally getting something together and getting a little bit of income out of the empty parks. So that's where it stands as of yesterday. I haven't seen anything new come out for today, but as of yesterday, that's where it stands, that they announced they're opening as a shopping and dining destination.
Yeah.
So, Mike.
Sorry, getting settled here.
What do you think about all this? There's a lot to unpack.
There is so much to friggin' talk about, but I have a couple theories about this. One, I think it would have been easier for them if they would have followed the Knott's model. Because Knott's has done a very, very good job with the food festivals that they've had. From July all the way up to the one right now,
Taste of fall-o-ween.
Halloween, they have been excellent. And it's been a time that you're able to see what the theme park could actually do to control and how to work during this time.
Hmm.
I did talk to the park president at the Halloween event during the media day where we went that weekend, and he was saying the only thing he wishes he could open the rides, but everything else is open.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing: Disney and Disneyland could have done the same thing from the get-go, especially since when they closed, they were having the taste their food and wine festival.
Yeah.
Which it could have kept everything and do the same thing without opening the rides.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't do that. My biggest perception is that they want to go back to if you know the history of Disneyland, Walt Disney was not very happy that when he opened the park, that all these hotels were being built across the street. And it kind of and the whole reason why a Walt Disney World was born was because of that. Because he didn't have he couldn't control the environment.
And they were also in the mid 50s then. They were a bunch of low quality motor courts that were just thrown up really fast because no one expected Disneyland to be successful. So when they found, people are actually coming in from across the country to come and see this, they just threw together the quickest little shanty hotels they could to make a quick buck. And that's what he was surrounded with in the late 50s when he was very bothered, and Anaheim said, essentially, you have enough sway. We're not going to allow you to talk about anything else outside of your resort.
Right. And that's the thing. I have a feeling, and this is just a perception, it could be rumor mill, and a lot of theme park sites they're touching upon it, but they don't really know the business end of it. If I'm Disney, you would want those businesses to go out of business across the street.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. You don't want the ones across the street at the Anaheim Convention Center because that plays into what you're doing. The ones that are directly across the street on Harbor, that's a different story. Now that Disney has an ownership into Garden Walk, why not get rid of all those hotels, tear them all down? You have a place for a third park now.
Mm-hmm.
You can control the environment around Disneyland, and it's enough space to control that environment. People have said, but Disney doesn't have the money to do that. Bull. They have money. They're a big corporation that have different assets in the
corporation. Plus, they're not afraid of making a big expenditure. Lucasfilm, Marvel, Fox, that they know is going to pay off.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that would be the biggest payoff because they finally control the environment around them, all the way to Garden Walk. So you could put a third gate and anchor downtown Disney and Garden Walk into each other.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go.
And it's also something I think Disney is starting to. I don't know if they're intentionally doing this or if it just happens to work out that way, but Disneyland has always been a locals park.
Yeah.
Ever since Walt Disney World was built. If you're in Middle America and you could choose to fly to just Disneyland in the middle of LA, or you could fly to this gigantic complex of parks over in Florida. And I think Animal Kingdom predated California Adventure. So they had 4 full parks before California Adventure was around. So it's like really 1 versus 4 plus the shopping and dining, plus staying on property, all that stuff. Nobody's going to come fly to Disneyland unless you're a huge Disney nerd and you want to see where it all began kind of thing, or it's closer and cheaper. You know, you'll get people from like Utah who will drive in, that kind of stuff. And then the overflow of people coming to visit Hollywood.
Yeah.
They need to make this more of a destination. And I think with Cars Land, they started to see that people were coming out here. They had such a huge spike in attendance after Cars Land that if we get, like, rather than doing Star Wars kind of thing where everybody gets the same thing, you put it all under Disney Parks brand and we're all trading attractions and stuff. If you give each park its own rides, its own personality, then people will be like, I've done Disneyland or Disney World 2 or 3 times. I want to see the Indiana Jones ride and Cars Land, and make it unique instead of trying to just cut down costs and be like, everybody gets this ride. So I think if they do get a third gate, kind of following what Universal Florida is doing for its third gate with Epic Universe, you can do the things that are either you don't have room for, like Universal Monsters that have been around. They're doing a huge Universal Monsters attraction. They're doing new stuff like the Super Mario World. They have, I think they're doing a Harry Potter themed area.
Yeah, for the new movies, for the
Wizarding World or the Fantastic Beast World.
Yeah, Fantastic Beast.
Yeah, stuff like that. So it's building on like, okay, this is the trend we're going for, is these big movie tie-in lands, but then also stuff that's like just pure imagination, like the Universal Monsters, which also is a movie tie-in, but it's like based on all of them in, I guess, a shared universe aspect of a theme park. If they were to do something like that out here and do a Disney park that has entirely unique offerings, it could be a small park. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could really, just because they've got the garden walk, they've got some area out behind the convention center, I think, and then they've got this gigantic cast parking lot across the street from the garden walk. Right. Just the garden walk and that would be enough for a theme park. But then you add in any other little land they have, anything they can acquire. You don't have to do on-site parking because it's all handled over at the Mickey and Friends parking structure. And you transport in and around with an extension of the monorail that goes across Harbor Boulevard. It's definitely an expense, but I think with the most recent developments that they've had, were they to open a third park and do it like Epic Universe and make it really a destination of, I want to come and see it. Now, Disneyland is starting to compete with Disney World because we've got, 3 good. If this one's good, it would be 3 good parks and some hotels. And I know they were talking at one time about doing a Galactic Star Cruiser here, and then that got canned. But you could put in another hotel on site, something like maybe in the park, like Tokyo or Shanghai has, and you could do something that would draw people from across the country. And yeah, it's an expenditure now, but I think it would make sense overall to bring in a wider audience and not just have the Orange County and LA County pass holders who are constantly frequenting it. You could make it bigger and more intense.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I don't think Bob Chapek has that kind of gumption to do that. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of scaling back, but that's cool. I didn't know you could put that up there.
Let me get the map up right now, so after we at least we get that up, because this is what we're talking about right here. Is all these businesses. What better way to show businesses that we're talking about than on a map?
Yeah.
So right here is what we're talking about. All these businesses along Harbor. I don't know if can you see that? Can you see that right now?
Yeah.
All these businesses around Harbor. So you take out this hotel right here. You take out these hotels. They own this parking lot right here, and they bought one of the hotels around here, right? Because they were going to make it into like a cast building.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they were taking out because of that Mickey's Railways right here.
Yeah.
So if they bought out and they had just all this land right here, not even crossing Walt Disney Way, that's big enough for a small park.
Yeah. Because look at it, if you zoom out a little bit, look at it relative to Disneyland or California Adventure.
Yeah.
It's maybe slightly smaller than Disneyland, but definitely enough room to work. And if you connect it, if you own all those hotels, you could probably connect it through across Harbor Boulevard.
Yeah, exactly. Or even if they pushed,
And that down there.
Even if they sold these hotels, let's just play Imagineering right now.
Mhm.
Even if they bought the land over here on the south side, they offer these buildings and these companies here land on that side.
To
Move them out, and you built the third park right over here.
And that's the Cass parking lot. That's the gigantic lot that they own. I think that used to be the Strawberry Field or something. I remember hearing about that years ago.
It was a
and
strawberry
then
field.
The Garden Walk directly north of that, they also own.
Right here.
Yeah. So that is bigger than Disneyland. That could be a bigger park.
The only problem is that you got to buy up all these houses, apartments, all that.
Yeah.
You buy up all that, which they probably already have. You have your third gate right there, and you use this as a lot for buildings, new hotels, things like that. That's why when you really think about it logically, this is a lot of real estate that Disney would want. They don't even need to, and they already built the hotel right here next to Garden Walk. That one's done. So you already have a hotel resort area, and with this transitional area right here to make a resort. Because right now, as much as they say Disneyland is a resort, it's really not.
No.
It really is not. But when you look at it that way, there's a lot of room there. So why would you not think that Disney would want those businesses to go down? Instead of buying them out completely and buying them at full price, or whoever owns that land, drop the value. And right now is the perfect time because of what's going on. It sucks to say that a company would do that, but companies have done that all the time throughout history.
And it's Disney. There's not a lot of companies, I think, that you can talk about in that way, but it's like Disney, Amazon, some of these companies that got where they are through, whatever means necessary they have to do. And it sucks.
I'm not going to tell them no.
Yeah.
Because Anaheim depends on Disney. No matter how much they try and think that the city's tax revenue is they're able to make enough money, the convention center and Disneyland really dump a lot of money into.
But not as much as you would think. Because I remember when they bought the Garden Walk and they said we're opening a third gate, and everybody in Imagineering who was not supposed to be talking was talking. And it was all over the internet. And if you knew anybody in Imagineering, they would tell you all the different ideas they had and here's what it's going to look like and all that kind of stuff. And it was a great time of speculation. And then Anaheim said, if you want to keep your tax breaks, you can't put in a third park. You have enough. We're done. We're not going to let you have any more control. And I guess they don't pay taxes on their tickets. They pay taxes on everything else, but not the tickets sold. So they said, if you want to keep that. Yeah. And
that's a state law that hasn't been.
Oh, it is?
Well, yeah. It was the same thing like when I worked background. I used to work in professional sports, work for the Angels, the Dodgers, Chivas USA, Galaxy. And that's the one thing why there was never a tax on the tickets is because you didn't have to charge tax on the tickets due to in the state environment of California. Because entertainment. It's changing now in different counties. It's changing, but LA County still hasn't had that tax yet. But I believe I think there's a couple parks that are doing that now.
Taxing the tickets?
Taxing the tickets. But I need to double check on that. I'm not exactly sure. But I remember back when I was working at the Angels during the time in the early 2000s, there was no tax on the tickets.
Yeah.
And that was something that was a state thing.
Well, see, that's interesting to me because then what was Anaheim holding over Disney to prevent them from creating that third gate?
Nothing.
I always thought it was a fight over taxing, and that's why they ended up doing the investment in California Adventure and Star Wars.
No, it's the same thing like with Angel Stadium. It's bad business deals by the city. in which is causing these issues. Because if you give somebody the land for $1 a year, technically, or whatever the negotiation is, you're not getting any money out of it, and all you're getting is a sales tax. Because they're paying the sales tax, they have to pay sales tax.
Yeah,
Funnels into Anaheim. That's why I say, though the park and the convention center and Angel Stadium and the Anaheim Pond make a lot of money for the city. Take those all away, the city's just like any other city.
yeah. And
But
right now, everybody's hurting.
Yeah, you add those footprints in that city, and you have control. You have power over what decisions are made. That's why I say it's with all the news coming out and people coming, all the businesses on the side of harbor saying that complain about the state reopening. The state has really nothing to do with it. The state's a middleman. The state's an object in which you play the game.
Yeah. They're just regurgitating what the CDC is saying.
Yeah. But if you look at Disney's point of view, you're not looking at in the next 5 to 10 years. You're looking within the next 20 to 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that now during an economic downtime that, depending on how it goes with this presidential race, you may actually have the ability to get that land.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're able to do what you want to do because the city's not going to say no.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be very hard for somebody to come in and build outside of what you already have there.
Yeah.
And that's what Disney wants, is to control that area.
And it's sad to say that, but I have heard that from some other places, ever since we talked about it. I have heard it from other bloggers and stuff. Yeah. But it's also something where it's like, oh, we all love Disney. We don't want to think this, but like, it sounds very likely.
It's like, that's why I say it's like I'm looking at this as a business standpoint. If I was Disney,
mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they're going to do this, but I'm just saying that if I was Disney, I would be looking at buying all that property because you finally you have what Walt Disney always wanted. The reason why Walt Disney didn't buy the land around him was he couldn't afford it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was being pumped into Disneyland in that area in which he bought. Now that you have the revenue, you have multi-facets into your company.
Mm-hmm.
The stock price, imagine a stock price that's already at 120 and you say you're going to buy all that land and build a resort, that stock price would jump
mm-hmm.
because of so much reinvestment into what's going on. That's why other theme park bloggers, I've seen them too. I'm like, you got to think of it as a business aspect
mm-hmm.
and a business play in this place. It's not about you, the customer, because you're the customer is going to come. If they build a third park, they know people are going to flood, just like right now. Downtown Disney's always friggin' crowded in comparison to like City Walk, for example. That on the weekends is the only time it's crowded, and during the week it's empty.
Yeah.
You build that third park, connection with Garden Walk, which has the AMC in there. They're rebuilding, they're trying to attract more businesses in there. They just built a hotel. You buy up that area, you built that third park, and maybe build some other hotels there.
Mm-hmm.
You got a gold mine.
And then it actually does become a destination. Yeah. You're not here as a stopover, as a day. It like the City Pass thing where it's like you hit Universal and Disneyland and SeaWorld all on one ticket. Like that would go out the window.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be here for a month. It's going to become a destination like Disney World if we can inch a little bit closer each time.
Yeah, I don't think that Universal isn't thinking like with the studio lot.
Universal's been thinking about it for years. I just want them to pull the trigger, and I've heard that from Universal Creative directly that the biggest challenge they've had is their location. And I had a theory a few years ago about like what we could be seeing around 2020 if they played their cards right, and they ended up not really developing any of it. They've just been kind of in stasis, but they want it to be better. They want to expand. They're making more money on the theme park than they are on the studio. They're not going to tear down the back lot because that's their studio tour, but the front lot, it's really expensive to film there. And they've got a few shows that are constantly in production. So leave some of it, but you could definitely, look at how much land was made available when stage 28 was torn down, the Phantom of the Opera stage. there's so much. You could fit an entire attraction in that footprint,
Yeah.
or just leave the building standing, and theme out in between them. Take out every other stage. You could do Diagon Alley. You could do whatever. And now they're building Nintendo World down on the lower lot, doing some of
the Family Opera stage was.
And that's an entire land. Like that's just incredible.
Yeah. And I'm still curious what they're doing with the land they tore down around the Voice soundstage.
Did they tore down more?
They're everything excavated on the side. The soundstage is still up.
Yeah.
But the land is excavated.
Really?
Could it be the fact that they're putting in something other thing for the corporate, or are they going to build the Donkey Kong land on there too?
I've heard about that, the Donkey Kong expansion. I thought that was going to be way in the future. I think it's too early. Universal's gotten really good about multi-purpose buildings, like the soundstage where they filmed Will and Grace, and they did the live musicals, and they have room for audience, and they also have production offices, and they have Universal, whatever company offices. That's a great building, and I feel like when they do invest in a new building somewhere in that area, they really do use the space well, and they get the most use out of that area that they can. So that, there's nothing wasted. If they're going to do something, it will be really good.
See, that's why I think the back lot isn't going to be around in the next 20, 30 years.
Do you think the back lot, the sets?
Yeah. I think the sets are going to be around, but they're going to build around the sets.
Yeah.
To use those as different lands, different walking areas, because they're already built. All you got to do is build behind them.
Yeah. Turn it from a facade into a building.
Yeah, because, the way making movies is now and making commercials, a lot of it is not in a studio.
Yeah.
A lot of it is now in using city streets, outside, going to Vancouver, going to different countries. It's like it's not just sitting in Hollywood anymore.
Yeah. So, even just 6 Points, Texas. No one ever films Westerns at 6 Points, Texas anymore. Because one, that's like the most identifiable set anywhere, and two, it's way too small. You can only shoot in one direction on one street. And for the price you're paying, it's pointless. So just turn that into, Frontierland or something. Oh, hold on 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
All I was about to say is that.
Sorry.
Yeah, the little boy in the closet. No, just kidding.
I heard the cat meowing, and I was like, boy, she's loud, through the door. She was inside. But, doing something like that to turn that into a themed area could be an expansion idea. I never really thought about that. I thought it would be easier to just take it all down. But if the, Universal Monsters land works well over in Florida, they've got the little European streets.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I say, I think as bad as COVID-19 has been, it's also allowed them to play around, all parks, to play around with what they have around them in the next 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
You're going to see, this is the part where you're going to see a change in all these parks in order to make them more of a destination, more of a resort. Yeah, everybody's saying how they don't have money, but they have money. These are major billion-dollar companies.
Yeah,
that are run by very, very smart business people.
And also,
yeah. And Chapek is always looking at a way to make money,
save money. I take issue with some of Chapek's business decisions and how he handles things, and even just his public persona and how he is in interviews and whatnot. It's very. I feel like there's a lot of dance parties in the future. And stuff like that. Like, instead of investing in something real that tells a story or is a real attraction or anything, it's going to be a lot of Videopolis for the next few years as we're waiting on what's already in the hopper. We just need to finish it up, and that's where the money is going to be going. And then everything else in the meantime is going to be status quo, or, Frozen comes out with another movie and they do like a Frozen dance party or something like that. I don't feel like they that Disney is going to be in the position of spending any money for anything in the near future. And that includes expansions to Star Wars and, you know, all this other stuff that they could be doing to make it better, to draw in more of a crowd. But I think fighting the uphill battle of post-COVID, everyone's going to feel unsafe. They're not really sure. Looking at the crowds and stuff, and for a while, everyone was saying, "Oh, it's just shot that way. It's really not that crowded." It is that crowded.
Yeah,
you watch a live stream, it is that crowded. There's no way this isn't shot from a different angle. This is a video. They're walking through the crowd. There are way too many people there, and so it's going to be like that. But I think worse over here because we have fewer parks and fewer options. And so it's going to be nuts for a while, and people aren't going to want to come out even after the eventual vaccine or anything else. I feel like they're going to need something to entice people to come back, give them something that's so cool they can't not go. And the Spider-Man ride is not going to be that.
That's not going to do it.
No.
That Avengers ride is going to have to be built in order to bring people in.
I think so.
And that's a good point to bring across is the fact that, like, when people compare, like, they look at what's going on in Florida, that's a completely different animal. If you haven't been to Florida, you don't know what it's like and what that order. I mean, we've both been to Florida, and we've both seen Walt Disney World. We've been to Universal Studios over there. We've seen that's a completely different animal to what it is here. I mean, that's why, like I had said, is like when Knott's started these food festivals, I was looking at it and saying, okay, let's see how crowded it's going to be. But they controlled the amount of people in that park perfectly. They did. I cannot praise Knott's Berry Farm and Cedar Fair's work in this enough because he did such a great job in what they did opening. Whereas Disneyland, when they opened up Downtown Disney, to this very day, you'll see alerts on Twitter saying that the parking lot is full and packed. 2-hour waits to just go shopping. It's like you opened it up and there's no real thought process into it. And I've always told you, and we've talked about it many times, that they cannot open the parks because it's going to be just as bad as sometimes the crowded days at Walt Disney World, and maybe worse. The amount of annual pass holders is going to be like, how do you say you can't let the annual pass holders go whenever in the world they want? Because you got other people who have tickets that are good until they are expiring. So how do you logistically do it to allow the people in? Because you're already seeing it now. Disney fans will be there every single day. And it's becoming to another level where people used to take their kids to an actual park, and now they take them to Disneyland. The mentality has changed. The mentality is so different now that it's almost like. And also, too, one of Disney's biggest complaints is that they always say that annual pass holders don't spend enough money inside the parks that they want to see. So how do you juggle that? How do you juggle the logistics to make this work for the park at 25% capacity?
And that's the issue. It's that if it was enough people, it would just be, getting people through the door. You could make money on that. You could have, between ticketing and the souvenirs and whatever that they do spend, or special food offerings, that kind of stuff. But I think it's at 25% capacity that is capped based on the average of how much each person spends. If that figure is not going to hit it for you, then it's going to be an issue no matter what. I don't think people are going to be more willing to spend money now after probably being unemployed for a while and, all that kind of stuff. It's been a rough shutdown for a lot of people. Just getting through the door is going to be enough of an expenditure. You're going to bring your sandwiches when you would normally go to the sandwich bar. So I think it's pretty much going to be a fixed number. There's not a lot they can do to change that. And that's why I'm thinking like, okay, you're chomping at the bit to get it open, and I understand. But is 25% going to be worth it for you? Even after all the layoffs and everything else, the cost cutting, is 25% capacity and the expenditures that you're expecting enough to make your day where you're not necessarily losing money or just barely breaking even? You need to be putting it back in the bank.
Right. And I think that's where you come in That's why it's a perfect time to have somebody like Bob Chapek in, who
Mhm.
knows how to tie those purse strings pretty tight.
He does.
And I think he won't be in the long-term scheme of things. This play was actually done correctly if you look at it by Bob Iger's view and by the board of directors. To have somebody, it worked out just right that something like this would happen, where you have a CEO who's literally very tight on the budgets and tight on
Mhm.
money that is going out during a time like this. It
Yeah.
actually worked out great for them.
Yeah. That's a good point. It works out great from a business point of view, but from a
Yeah.
guest point of view, I'm not looking forward to it.
Oh no, it's not going to be something where the guests are going to be. You're going to see a Paul Pressler years type of anger
Yeah.
on the fan side of things. But
Yeah.
you're going to actually, but on the business side of things, let's be honest, they're a business. They want you to be happy because you want you to be spending money at their venue.
Mhm.
But ultimately, it's a business. And when it comes to the theme park business, I think the one that's going to hurt the most is Six Flags Magic Mountain. They've already been having
Really?
I think so. It's just because they've been closed for so long, and they rely
Yeah.
so much on local people coming in,
Yeah.
and they haven't been able to open. They haven't really done anything with the park.
Yeah.
So Knott's, I think, is going to be the bet on top of a lot, and I think Universal's going to be third on this, and Disneyland's going to be the question mark of
Mhm.
what's going to happen because of all the factors with Disney. But I think Universal is in a good play right now. I think Universal is really in a good environment. Knott's is in the best environment.
Knott's is the best, and I wish Universal would follow suit. And as soon as Knott's opened, I was kind of hoping Universal would do it immediately because they were already set for their Top Chef Food Festival, which was on the back lot. It didn't have rides; it was just food and entertainment. And why can't we just do it? Like, just we rescheduled whatever.
It's like they don't even have to open up the escalator to go down. They could just have everything up on the top part
Yeah,
of the theme park.
yeah,
Just open up the stores, open up some of the restaurants, have some people perform and things like that. It's like an extended city walk,
hmm
and there you go. And
even just for photos,
Yeah.
I mean, that's. I think about this all the time. If Disney specifically, but also Universal,
Mhm.
but if they would sell a ticket on a photo exhibition tour and give you like a half day
Mhm.
to just go around the park and you get, 20 minutes or so at each location of all the different icons, or like Adventureland, you can see all the way down. So it's like, all right, you guys can roam anywhere you want and take your photos and do time lapse and take pictures of yourself for Instagram, do a bunch of generated content and sell a ticket at $300. As a photographer, I would pay that easily to go in and get crowd-free shots of Disneyland. And when I was a cast member, I would stay, you get off at midnight when the park closes, and just walking around the resort, going back to the car or something, or walking through the park, going back to the car, going to security to drop off keys or whatever. It was the best time I think I've ever had in Disneyland, is when it's just quiet. There's no one here. You can just sit on a bench on Main Street and there's nothing. And that was, I can't express how wonderful that was as just a Disney fan to have that opportunity. And now to be able to do that in the daytime with beautiful sunshine in the summer or something, and take your pictures of the castle and all that kind of stuff. That would be a really unique and magical experience for a photographer, for a Disney fan. But then it would also play back into their hand of, now I've got tons of content that I had to pay for, so now I got to make my money back. I'm going to put this out on social media. I'm going to promote you guys by saying, look at this thing I did because I'm so cool. Look at me, look at me. And, I'm sure it would attract a lot of Instagram influencers and all that who want the perfect shot of, like, I'm going to bring my 8 or 9 different outfits and do different things. So you have for all your different campaigns. It would end up being, they would get paid for their own viral marketing.
Yeah. And they all had the opportunity to do something during this time to be able to survive.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's hard for me to believe that Disney, there isn't there isn't an underlying background thought into what's going on, because you don't do anything. They don't do anything, and they don't just sit around on their hands, sitting on their hands. It's just like Knott's. Knott's didn't sit around. They went back into history, went back to when the park first opened and made and they just had the chicken dinner restaurant, and they brought that mentality there.
Yeah.
They thought outside of the box, they're not making what they would normally make, but at least there's some money and revenue coming in.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's enough to pay off the or the employees there, the team members, whatever they're called. And then you don't have to suffer the kind of layoffs that Disney did, because even if you're an attraction operator and it's like, hey, do you want to come and pick up trash or work security or hand out maps? Whatever, I'll take it, and you get fewer days, but at least you have something. And you don't get laid off 28,000 people.
Yeah, exactly. They thought outside of the box. Universal, they need, like, City Walk from Monday through Thursday is a ghost town.
Yeah.
We've been there. I went 2 weeks ago and it was still a ghost town. Actually, I went this past week, I went by there on Wednesday and it was a ghost town. The most people I saw ever was at the Dodger store, because people were waiting for the Dodger merchandise. But that was the most people I've seen in that.
Yeah.
They got to do something in order to drive people to come, because a movie theater isn't open.
Yeah.
Few of the restaurants are, but not many. But if you open up, like you said, with Universal Studios, open that up for shopping and dining, ride, shopping and dining, make it limited. Even if you charge a $10, $20 ticket, like Legoland's doing, to go just look at the Halloween theming of their mini land.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're making a gate. People are going to buy merchandise and going to buy food. And at least there's something revenue coming in where you could actually you don't have to turn anything on the rides. You just turn lights and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's why it's hard for me to see all these businesses, the theme park business, blaming the governor for things their inactions that they didn't do.
And then also threatening that, everything he's doing is only going to make ticket prices climb for you, the consumer. And it's like, no, they don't have
to. That happen no matter what.
Yeah, it's, there's a shutdown anyway, but also, like, you, the multi-billion-dollar corporation, might be able to shoulder some of that instead of passing the hurt on to your employees and customers. You could shoulder a little bit. Maybe the executives take a little bit of a pay cut. Maybe you guys dip into the coffers a little bit and make it more accessible to more people, instead of just being like, oh, well, screw it. He's hurting us, so we're hurting you, and that's his fault.
Exactly.
And I think they're doing that to get people pissed off, so they write to the governor and demand it open, and there's a huge wave of letters. I understand why, but it's also like, this is not, you're trying to blame him for what you're about to do to us.
Yeah.
So,
that's why I say, people, smarten up. These are businesses. Yeah. They're not public entities. There are private companies.
Yeah.
And that's why I always I get all the hate mail that I want. But when you work in this business, when you've been in this business for 12 years in sports and entertainment, you know what the plays are. And you work them to your advantage. And that's why I say I don't have any sympathy for Disney, because I know, and I have a feeling that in 20 to 30 years, I'm going to be right. Something is going to happen with this. This is the start of a play and a power play, just like the Angels did with what they're going to do around the stadium. That was a power play that they pretty much threatening that they were going to leave to go to Long Beach. And suddenly it works out that they're going to stay. These things are done for a reason, in order to make sure they get what they want. And I see that going to happen. It's going to happen with that. And I think Disneyland's going to do it eventually. Universal's going to do it. And Knott's will eventually say, hey, we were open during this whole time. If it wasn't for us being open, the city wouldn't have got that much revenue. This is what we want to do. We want to kind of try and see if we could work out something where we could get some more land to build across. And this is this is the time where, if I was the CEO, those are the plays I would make for expansion, to look where you could grow, where you could add more growth, and how within the next 20 and 30 years you're seeing a tripling to quadrupling of your value.
Yeah.
So what I say.
Yep. Well, with that, I think we're going to call it. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Mike, what have you got going on?
Well, this week we're going to be at Norco, where we're going to go to Not So Scary Farm, and then afterwards do Scary Farm. So we're going to be shooting that. We have a bunch of old Halloween haunts from Universal and Not. We're going to be putting that all up for Halloween week. And don't forget, we have our sponsors, the 20th Digital Fox, 20th Digital Studios. They and Hulu are having their bite-sized Halloween. Go check it out. If you go to the MuseTV.net webpage, click on Bite Size Halloween. It'll take you to all the short Halloween films. So go check it out.
And I'm Charlie, host of the Park Central podcast. We're kind of sporadic at the moment, but I'm still live on Instagram. So follow us there. It's Parks Central, and we'll see you next time.